Senator Burwell, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular business committee substitute House Bill 3361.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, House Bill 3361 is the sunset bill for TDHCA, the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. This was a special purpose sunset review of TDHCA that follows up on the full sunset review that was conducted in 2010. The committee substitute to HB 3361 continues the agency for 12 years. The bill removes impediments to the effective awarding of Texas's low-income housing tax credits. Specifically, it removes the letters of support from senators or representatives as a scored item for the housing tax credit program and uses voted resolutions from a city council or commissioner's court as the second highest scoring item for the housing tax credit program. The bill eliminates inconsistencies in TDHCA's enforcement process and conforms key elements of the Manufactured Housing Division's functions to common licensing standards, and the committee substitute retains a technical change made in the House engrossed bill relating to debarment to correct a statutory reference and retains a change made relating to compliance monitoring. I move suspension, Mr. President.
Senator Burwell is moving suspension of the regular order of business to take up and consider committee substitute House Bill 3361. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The rule has been suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute House Bill 3361. Secretary, would you please read the caption?
Committee substitute House Bill 3361 relating to the continuation and functions of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
The following amendment, floor amendment number 1, is by Birdwell. Secretary, would you please read the amendment?
Floor amendment number 1 by Birdwell.
Senator Birdwell to explain floor amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment simply fixes a drafting error by striking 3 words from the bill that are no longer necessary. I move adoption.
Members, Senator Birdwell now moves adoption of floor amendment number 1. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Floor amendment number 1 has been adopted. The following amendment, floor amendment number 2 by Taylor. Secretary, would you please read the amendment?
Floor amendment number 2 by Taylor.
Senator Taylor to explain floor amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment was offered in committee and intends to restore the ability for written statements only from state representatives to be used for community support in evaluating the application of proposed development sites. It does not include senators. I understand the senators have much bigger areas that they have to cover. They don't have the familiarity with some of these projects, but the state representative is much closer to the community, and they chosen and shown by evidence by their vote that they'd like to stay in that process. So I just thought this was kind of a compromise between the House and Senate. If the Senate doesn't want to be in there, be taken out and let the House stay if they'd like, and that's the purpose of the amendment. It just takes it back to current status without the Senator's involvement.
Senator Ellis, for what purpose? To ask the author a question. Author of the amendment? Yeah. Senator Taylor,
Sure.
yield?
I yield.
Yeah, Senator, to be honest with you, I just think the system is fraught with problems. I don't think they ought to get points on whether a senator does a letter or a representative carries a letter. And to be honest with you, I was very pleased when I heard the explanation to hear we're going to get them both out. If the House members want to not concur, it ought to put the spotlight on the issue and decide it then. But that's just such a bad precedent. I'm just so worried about at some point us having a problem that really casts such a shadow on the whole system. It strikes me as just fairly political. A lot of our constituents, as you know, don't know the difference between one chamber and the other. And if they're getting points for it, they still think, well, I have to get a letter from my senator. And I assume you and a lot of us probably put a procedure in place. I usually say, what did the mayor, what does the city say, city council member? I just think this is going to really blow up on somebody at some point. So I'd respectfully hope that the amendment does not get on. I'll be voting against it.
And I appreciate your concern. Having been in the House for a number of years, I did use that very same format that you did. I want to make sure the locals were in support of the project before I would offer that, and sometimes the locals were not. And we would do letters reflecting that as well. And sometimes you would actually know the project if they'd done a number of them in your area, whereas in the state rep is much closer and a much smaller area to represent. They have a better opportunity to know that. And I certainly appreciate your concern, and I've heard it from others. I'm just offering this amendment as an alternative, as somewhere to bridge the gap between where the House is now and where the Senate is.
And so I might add, you do know we can still write a letter for it or against it, or you can make a phone call over there. But the idea, I'm told there's nowhere else in the country where they give some points just because the senator or the state representative sent a letter over there. And mostly it has become, in my judgment, a rather unseemly process. So I hope members don't vote for this.
Senator Birdwell on the Taylor amendment.
Thank you, Senator Taylor and Senator Ellis for the discussion. I concur with Senator Ellis on the merits of removing the letters as a scored item. In fact, members, in the original bill, or the bill as it is now proposed, senators and representatives can still write letters, but they would not be scored. And in fact, we took the local community, whether it's in an unincorporated area, the Commissioner's Court could write letters and it's scored, or in a municipality, the City Council could provide scoring, and that scoring actually is moved up in a higher priority. This allows the local communities continue to still place letters that score for TDHCA, but state representatives, state senators could still provide letters but would not be scored. And I again concur with much of Senator Ellis's comments. Therefore, I would move to table, Mr. President.
Members, Senator Birdwell has moved to table.
If I might, I'll just pull down the amendment.
Senator Taylor withdraws for amendment number 2. Thank you, Senator Taylor.
Mr. President, I just would like to thank Senator Taylor for our rigorous discussion we had on this, both in committee and here on the floor.
We'd like to all thank you for your discussion on the withdrawn amendment. Senator Birdwell, you recognize for motion. Senator Birdwell, you recognize for motion.
Passage to third reading, Mr. President.
Senator Birdwell moves passage to third reading. Is there objection? Chair hears none. To pass third reading. Senator Birdwell, you recognize for motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the roll.
Birdwell, Campbell, Corona, Davis, Field, Duncan.
29 ayes, 1 nay. The rule's been suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage. House Bill, Committee Subject House Bill 3361. Secretary, please read caption.
Committee Substitute House Bill 3361 relating to the continuation and functions of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
Senator Birdwell, you recognize for motion.
And it is with great pride, Mr. President, I submit for final passage my final sunset bill of this session.
Let's drag this out as long as we can. Thank you, Senator Birdwell. Moves passage of Committee Subject House Bill 3361, final passage. Secretary, please call roll.
Birdwell, Campbell, Corona, Davis, Field, Duncan, Ellis, Estes.
29 ayes, 1 nay. Committee Subject House Bill 3361 is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator
Thank you,
Birdwell.
Mr. President. Thank you, members.